Iran accuses Saudi-led coalition jets of bombing its embassy in Yemen's capital city, Sana'a. At least 65 people were killed in an attack on a military training facility in western Libya. And on the one-year anniversary of the Charlie Hebdo shootings, French police shoot dead a man wielding a knife and wearing a fake suicide vest at a Paris police station as President Hollande reveals new anti-terrorism laws to police forces in his New Year's address. Good afternoon. Iran has accused Saudi-led coalition jets of dropping bombs on its embassy in Yemen's capital, Sana'a, causing damage, this according to state media. Sana'a residents reported dozens of airstrikes this morning by the coalition, which is battling the Iran-allied Houthi rebels. Meanwhile, Iran has banned the import of goods from Saudi Arabia after the kingdom cut diplomatic ties over attacks on its embassy in Tehran following the execution of a top Shiite cleric. Earlier, we spoke to I-24 News senior Middle East analyst Ali Waqid, who said Iran will respond strongly to the Saudi-led coalition's move.
The Iranian added this incident to the long bill they opened with the Saudis in the last days, and we know that they have the way to try to target the Saudis, but not only in Yemen or in Iraq. They can do it, of course, in Lebanon, and they can do it elsewhere. Everywhere there are Shiite minority or a Shiite population that can be used by the Iranian intelligence, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, in order to retaliate against the Saudis. But I think that on the immediate level, the Iranian will strengthen and will accelerate their support to the Houthis in order to turn the Saudi mission to try to liberate Sana'a and Yemen from the Houthis much more complicated. I think that we know that the Iranian never keep these bills open, and very shortly we will see Iran answer. We just don't know yet when and where and what would be the kind of this retaliation, but for sure from what we are hearing from Iranian responsibles, what we are seeing in the social media of groups supporting Iran, there is no doubt that the Iranian will try to retaliate.
Moving now to Libya, according to reports, up to 65 people were killed this morning when a truck bomb hit a military training center in the west of the country. The casualties included civilians. The bomb detonated in the center of the facility as hundreds of recruits were gathering there, and witnesses said residents were ferrying victims to the local Misrata hospital in ambulances and cars, many with shrapnel wounds.
This morning, Thursday, we received a number of wounded from the police academy in Zliten. So far, we have received more than 40 wounded between moderate to serious to critical conditions. There are 4 martyrs and 6 cases in critical condition.
Meanwhile, Islamic State has captured the strategic town of Bin Jawad on Libya's coast. An amateur video purports to show. The video, said to be filmed yesterday, appears to show militants on the streets standing by what appears to be a black IS flag. In recent days, the extremist group has been attacking Libya's oil tanks, resulting in fires spreading to ports as Cedar and Ras Lanouf, which have been closed since December 2014. And we move now to France, where police shot dead a man trying to storm a Paris police station today. That man was armed with a knife and was said to have been wearing a fake explosive belt. According to French media, a bomb disposal unit was called to the station in the northern part of the city, and that is where they confirmed that there were no explosives on his vest. And the French Interior Ministry said the attacker shouted Allahu Akbar as he entered the premises. Now this as 1 year after the anniversary of the shootings at satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. French President François Hollande told police forces today the government is passing new laws and ramping up security, but the threat of terrorism remains high. The I-24 News Desk has more.
It's been 1 year since 2 jihadists burst into the Paris offices of French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo and opened fire. 2 days later, in a separate but linked attack, another gunman killed 4 hostages at a Jewish supermarket in Paris. The attacks, which left 17 people dead, shocked the world. For France, they marked the beginning of a historically bloody year. In June, a man was decapitated inside a factory in Grenoble. 2 months later, a man opened fire aboard a Thalys train, an attack halted by off-duty American soldiers and which left 4 people injured. And on November 13th, 130 people were killed in a series of coordinated attacks in the city, most notably at the Bataclan Theater. At police headquarters in Paris on Tuesday, French President François Hollande called on security services to improve their cooperation as part of the ongoing fight against terrorism.
Mesdames et messieurs,
ladies and gentlemen, you protect the French people. You also protect their way of life, their liberty. That way of life, that's what the terrorists wanted to attack. Because joy, sharing, culture inspired hatred in them. Probably not in decades has your mission been more necessary, more demanding. Because terrorism will continue to burden our country with this formidable threat.
la responsabilité.
Many of the attackers in both January's rampage and November's massacre were known to French security services, having either traveled abroad to fight with extremists or been prevented from doing so. After November's attack, Hollande implemented a state of emergency in the country that has yet to be lifted and significantly expanded police powers. People on the streets of Paris said much has changed in just 1 year.
Something has been broken, I think. People's lightheartedness, their joie de vivre is no longer there. You can tell people are on guard and suspicious. The terrorists didn't win, but they managed to break something.
But it seems some things haven't changed after all. Amid the commemorations, Charlie Hebdo also had a special issue for the 1-year anniversary. The cover, depicting a bloodied god, is how the magazine is guarding its legacy of taking no prisoners.
And in other news, according to security forces, Israel's Shin Bet intelligence agency broke up a Hamas cell last month that was plotting to carry out murders and kidnappings of Israelis in order to trade them alive or dead for the release of Palestinian prisoners. A total of 6 suspects, of which we are seeing the photos of 3 of them, allegedly planned to carry out a copycat kidnapping and murder of 3 Israeli teens in June 2014. In a joint Shin Bet IDF police operation, residents of Hebron and East Jerusalem were arrested on December 15th. And meanwhile, Israel's Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked is expected to meet the U.S. ambassador to Israel in coming days to discuss Washington's reservations over a new bill targeting foreign-funded NGOs. The so-called transparency bill requires NGOs who receive more than 50% of their funding from foreign governments to identify themselves as such in their publications. U.S. State Department spokesperson John Kirby said yesterday that, quote, a free and functioning civil society is an essential element of a healthy democracy, end quote. Earlier, we were joined in studio by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev to discuss the Israeli stance amid the growing U.S. concern and criticism.
We asked the Prime Minister's office if there's any change in plans regarding this bill. They directed us to the Justice Minister, Ayelet Shaked, who rejects the criticism. She published herself an op-ed in the American Jewish press earlier this week, claiming the bill doesn't prevent NGO activity and says that criticism of the law, and this is a quote, is part of the same foolish attempt to besmirch Israel's name. Ayelet Shaked also continues to stand by her comparison between the Israeli bill and the Foreign Agents Registration Act, even though the American bill, unlike the Israeli law, isn't limited to foreign governments, but to foreign interests at whole.
And in finance news, China halted the day's trading 30 minutes after opening this morning as shares plunged by more than 7%, triggering an automatic circuit breaker and eventually halting trade for the day. China also surprised markets today by speeding up the devaluation of the yuan.
China is important for the world economy, definitely, and once right now we see that China is losing momentum. That's especially negative for Germany, export imports to China, but I'm sure China, by its new 5-year plan, will turn the corner for the better. We'll see more volatility in Chinese economic things, but we are facing the new 5-year plan for China. We will see a firework of massive fiscal and monetary policy actions, and thereby China will gain momentum once again.
And these were the latest headlines. Thank you for watching.